The College Football Playoff Committee is going to give you their rankings on Tuesday night in between some college basketball games. That's a long way to wait. We're just going to kind of talk about it as it stands right now and what I believe the committee is going to say. So to make this clear, these are not our rankings. This is what I think the committee is going to do based on this past weekend's actions. So first things first, make sure to subscribe to the On3 YouTube channel, talking college football and only college football every single day. Don't want you to miss it. Make sure you're dialed in. So without further ado now, at number 6, I think the same thing is true as it was last weekend. I think Oregon's still at number 6. Now, I would say I think the committee views Oregon as a top 4 caliber team, but you go to check their top 4 ticket, and you say, sorry, you got this loss to Washington, and they're actually ahead of you at this point in time. So kind of a little blockade there right now. What I would say, though, for Oregon is they have a chance to punch their ticket if they take care of business, and if Washington takes care of business and they see them in that Pac-12 title game. I think Oregon, by nature of what the Pac-12 has done, by nature of the eye test for Oregon, if they keep winning, I think they're in that top 4. We've said that the entire time that we've done these rankings, in our own rankings, and what we think the committee is going to do. We think Oregon at 6 is fine for now, but a lot of ball left to be played. Handle business, Oregon, get that ticket punched. I think you're 6 this week. Now at number 5, a little bit of movement. This is the first movement we are predicting to happen within this top 6 for these college football playoff rankings. I think the committee is going to put Florida State at 5. Now, if you're a Florida State fan, you're saying, wait just a minute. You're dropping us after we just won a game? We're still undefeated. LSU, we beat them. We beat Duke. Like, are you serious right now? I understand the frustration. I don't think it's so much Florida State getting dropped as much as getting passed. We said this last week. We're going to say it again. Don't worry about the number on the left. Worry about the number on the right. Number on the right, the furthest right, still has a big old 0. That's the most important number right now for Florida State. Again, I don't think it's a matter of them performing poorly. Just when it comes to the eye test, I think that the team ahead of them, and pair that with the resume, has a little bit more recently than Florida State. So they're at 5. Handle business, just like Oregon. You will be in the dance. You'll be undefeated, and you'll be an ACC champion, and you'll be in the college football playoff. So don't worry about it at number 5 this week. I think that's where the committee will put them. I would just encourage you not to panic. Now at number 4, I think it's going to be Washington. For the sheer fact that they beat USC two weekends ago, then they beat Washington this weekend. That's 2 ranked wins in back-to-back weeks. And I could see them honestly flip-flopping between 4 and 5 throughout the duration of these rankings until we get to Selection Sunday. It all comes down to that Pac-12 title game. We all understand that. It's probably a rematch with Oregon. But by nature of the eye test and by nature of beating another good team in Utah, I think that's going to help them. I think it's going to boost them this week up into that top 4. Now at number 3, I want to give a quick preface before we go to number 3 here. I think all 3 of these top 3 teams could have a very valid case for number 1. I think on the flip side of that, you could have a very valid conversation to keep this top 3 the same. So what do we think the committee's going to do? We'll talk about it right now. At number 3, I think it's Michigan. Convincing win on the road at Penn State. Did not throw a pass in the second half and made 0 apologies about it. If you move them up, I think you do that based on the eye test. They have a top 10 win to their name right now. We understand it's a crash course towards Ohio State, but by nature of what they didn't do early in the year, and didn't do is probably the wrong phrasing, by nature of who they didn't get to play, who they didn't play early in the year, you appreciate that from Michigan, seeing them do what they were projected to do if you're talking to Vegas in that game against Penn State. It's now about building the resume. Okay, so I think they're still at 3. I think the resumes ahead of them are still better, which is what I think the committee is weighting most heavily in this conversation. But 3, no worries if you're Michigan. Worry about Ohio State when it gets there, and we'll be in good shape. Now, what do they do at number 2? I think at number 2 it's going to be Georgia again. And I think they still weigh the resume more heavily than the eye test if you're talking about Georgia and you're the College Football Playoff Committee. And if you're splitting hairs on the resume, the team ahead of you, Ohio State, they got a top 10 win on the road. Georgia, their top 10 win was at home, and they got another big-time top 15 win against Missouri, and that was at home in Athens. So by nature of Ohio State's resume, you probably give them the nudge there. But again, going back to the eye test, how much they factor in the eye test, we're going to learn a lot this weekend because Georgia throttled Ole Miss. So from an eye test perspective, I think you could make them number one. I think the committee is still looking at Ohio State's resume and saying, you know what, yeah, that's the best in the country. We'll talk about Ohio State in a second. One more note on Georgia. If I'm a Georgia fan, this is exactly where I think you want to be at this point. You want to be high enough in those college football playoff rankings to feel understood that, hey, this is one of the best teams in the country, but also not number one, so there's something to chase here. There's a sense of disrespect, a sense of urgency, a sense of, hey, we still are trying to get to that top spot. We're still climbing the mountain. Any ammunition is good ammunition for Georgia and for Kirby Smart. Now, at number one, I think it's going to be Ohio State. And I think Ohio State, the same thing is true about them as we've said since these rankings started. They have the best resume in the country, according to the College Football Playoff Committee. By nature of how they've ranked these teams, that seems to be the most important thing to them. Now, I would have a very difficult time dropping Ohio State from the College Football Playoff Committee because they just passed the eye test with flying colors this past weekend against a team where they should pass the eye test with flying colors, against Michigan State. I don't know how you drop Ohio State when you take that resume and you look at this past weekend where they beat a team down by 5 touchdowns. I would have a hard time dropping them if I'm in that room. It's all irrelevant, though, until they play Michigan that last week of the season in Ann Arbor. It's going to get here. That will determine this top four. That will have a very, very big impact, rather, on this top four. And I can't wait to talk about it. Can't wait to see what the committee does. But again, our predicted order for these next college football playoff rankings are Oregon at 6, Florida State, I think the committee's going to put at 5. Now, I don't know if I put them at 5, but the committee's going to put them at 5. So that's our prediction there. Washington will be at 4, Michigan at 3, Georgia at 2, Ohio State at 1. So that top 3 staying the same. A lot of meaningful football games when it comes to the playoff race and the conference races about to be happening here in a few short days, few short weeks. Make sure you subscribe right here to the On3 YouTube channel so you don't miss it. Also, follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. Let me know who you think should be in the top 6 on both those platforms. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.